Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video by me. Absolutely, the purpose of this one will be to take a look at Hudson Bay. Of course, we're going to be looking at all of the maps in the Summer Champion map pool, which has been announced. Here they are. And of course, plenty of new ones that no one has ever seen in there before. In fact, more new ones than there are actually existing ones. But, you know, things like Hudson Bay, very, very popular. And it's back. Gonna see more play. And I'm very happy about that. But Summer Championship signups are open. I would urge you to head on over to eso-community.net and make an account at least so you can join the forums. And do sign up if you're that way inclined. I absolutely will. I have no faith in getting towards the semi-finals or anything like that. But I'm definitely gonna have a good time, and I would encourage everybody to do so as well. I do apologize, gonna have to do this intro for every single one of these, but yes, you know, there's gonna be a whole bunch, as you probably realized, get a whole bunch of videos, one each for each of these, gonna release them all roughly at the same time. But without further ado, let's get into this. Hudson Bay, clearly quite similar to Aguenay with the picture set used here. Of course, Garja only has access to the default pictures. He cannot make new ones unless we mod the game for everybody, and then we all have to have the same mod. But you can clearly see quite aesthetically similar to Aguenay as well, quite immediately. But actually more than aesthetically similar. It's basically Aguenay. It's very, very similar, as you can see, with that iconic body of water just above the players, and indeed a trading route, one of two spawns actually. You get this spawn here, which is down the middle, 3 down the middle. You also get another spawn where you have sort of 2 sort of close to each other in these locations, and then it goes on to mirror for the but you know, it's basically Aguenay with animals, tile set, all of that good stuff, but with changes to make it more consistent, more balanced, more playable, and just generally superior in several ways, with some new things added as well. Keeps it fresh and interesting, but I'm so happy Garja chose to make this map better, so to speak. Certainly one of my favorites. One of those sort of standard maps, I suppose. And I say standard because you get these sort of muskrat treasures in your base for both players, and you have a fairly consistent trading route with good hunt. I don't know. It's a nice map, and Aguenay always has been like that. But what are the changes that Garja has made? Let's go over them. Okay, so in the north here, just above the purple player's base, we have a Cree settlement. And just below him, we have a Huron settlement over here as well. This is mirrored for both players and is actually very important. You wouldn't realize it. You think, well, native posts don't really share that much. But, you know, both players get a Cree above them and always get a Huron below them. The difference from regular Aguenay was that if you had, say, a Cree next to you here, you'd also have a Cree just below you here. And then because you had the Cree, your opponent would have the Huron. Both Huron and these, which is just silly. Like, one of each is way more balanced just because, you know, like, just objectively speaking, it is balanced, but it really does impact, particularly on Aguenay, more than you might think, because, you know, Cree settlements are really good. I'll go into it a lot more. We'll in-depthly cover, going to look at every single facet of this map, of all the maps actually, but just to briefly summarize the Cree, you get Carrera de Bois, is basically a trading post. I mean, a town center. You basically get an age 2 town center where you can make 5 Carrera de Bois, and if you have both of them on your side, that's 10 Carrera de Bois, and that's really important in those super high level matches where these can come into play in those perhaps long drawn-out colonial games, or even, you know, just more generally in every game as well. But yes, that's been changed, so they balanced those. And here we also have, you know, much more consistent hunts. I cannot stress enough how, you know, it's kind of obvious, but, like, you know, consistent hunt spawns in a competitive RTS, or consistent resource spawns, I should say, is, you know, just super important. You get these guaranteed 4 moose as normal, but you also always have this guaranteed elk herd, which is super close, and this one is usually about equally as close. If this is further away, then this one's a bit closer. You know, basically 2 herds very close to you. You always get that on this map. You also get a 3rd herd just above you up here as well, which is a bit further away, but perhaps you're playing British or perhaps you're playing Portuguese, and that, you know, extra hunt up here is still tempting to go and herd despite being a bit further and perhaps a bit more difficult, and perhaps, you know, uses more villager seconds to, you know, walk a villager all the way up there and start shooting it back. But you do have 3 hunts, 2 of which are very close. Now, the rest of the hunt doesn't matter, really. It's providing both players get sort of equal hunt. The placement of the other herds on the map is less important, and this is because, and I suppose coin mines as well, because, you know, you have enough hunt to do that early thing, to do your thing, do what you want to do, and then you have to play to the map. You'll see where the hunts are when you scout them, and lo and behold, oh, Age of Empires 3 is a game about, map control among various other things. I mean, yes, in the ideal world it would be mirrored like in StarCraft, but Age of Empires has always had that sort of random element to it, especially with the treasures, I guess. Particularly for AoE 3, but I guess AOM with the relics and things like that. But the point is the hunt and the coin modes here are less important. The game will usually pan out very much the same way if two players played the same civilization and you could choose to do a different build, but for the most part, if all variables were the same, wherever these middle hunts are placed in coins is not going to matter that much, because you can go and sort of fight for the map control a bit later on. It's just those early ones there, and that's the important thing there. So we do have those. Another thing we have changed, or at least Gaia has changed about this map, is getting rid of the water that spawns in these random places, like either here or something like that. If you don't know, if you're familiar with it, good. If you're not, there is a screenshot I'm sure I'll edit in. Both players, or I say that, but both players wouldn't always get a water. One player might get a pond and the other might not. Or if both players do get a pond, one pond might be super close to this, large body of water, and you could build like a 25 wood wall between the sea and your pond, and just block off this entire north section of the map, and the only entrance to your base is down the south here, so you know exactly where raids are coming from, and you increase the rush distance for your opponent, and just, I don't know, like one player gets that and the other guy gets like a pond spawning down here, and he has to spend 75 wood to make a wall, which probably just isn't worth doing. And yeah, you could block this off, but it's clearly not as good as it. Yeah, so we got rid of the water. I think Gaia made the right call there, and that's pretty good. We do, however, have a slightly bigger pond, and I guess that is to accommodate perhaps the alternative pockets of land. It's a little bit different from Pockets of Water, but I think this is super cool. New England is a very fun map because it has sort of land in the middle there. You can put towers on and stuff, and we're bringing that fun to Saguenay, if you ask me, in the form of Hudson Bay here. And just this excites me because Age of Empires 3, just generally, I suppose, is one of those Age of Empires games where, well, I don't know, look at AoE 2, Age of Mythology, and I guess even Age of Empires Online. It's got that sort of winner takes all with regards to water. Whoever takes the water wins it, all of it. Whereas in AoE 3, not only do you not have to take water, it's perfectly viable to do full-on land strat, because, of course, pioneers, you have to, not pioneers, schooners, you have to send if you want to take water. It's an entire card. It's like, do I send that, or do I send 700 wood, which is, so much better. Early on, it pays off so much faster. Schooners is, kind of risky. You have to think about it. There's all those different things. Do I send schooners a lot later? So, you don't have to take water, but also, even if both players do choose to take water, both players can control a section of the water by, putting a tower on one of these. It doesn't even have to be on one of these. It could just be straight up on the land. You do see that all the time in competitive play, to control water, or even push water. Imagine someone, defending their water with this, or even more cool would be to see someone pushing water. Landing a villager on their opponent's one of these and building a tower. That fun is added here, and it also it just allows players to control sections of water, which I've always found pretty cool about AoE 3. You can both have a water presence without sort of one just taking all of the water and sort of ending the game there. So there is that. Next up, I suppose we will talk about the one of two trading post spawns. We do indeed have this one down the middle on this map. And this is the first spawn, I suppose. Now, this is this one here, being in the middle is harder to defend. If you're going to build one here in the early game, you're going to rush your explorer over to here and build one of these two trading sites. You have to, understand that it's going to be harder to defend than the spawn, which is, of course, much closer to your base. So civilizations like France, Spain, Germany that might be looking for a Fortress Age agenda, which they do. If they're not doing a Fortress Age agenda, fair enough. But if they are, then you might want to build your trading sites that are close to you. You're more likely to do that build. They're a lot easier to defend those, I suppose. Similar to not exactly like Great Plains where it's in your base, but similar. So there's that's worth bearing in mind. Next up is the treasures. I've already mentioned these two sort of muskrat treasures that you do get in your base. And, yeah, but they're called level 1 treasures, I believe. I believe that's how the code in the script handles those. But you do also get level 2 treasures, which all of the other treasures on this map are. We'll go through them just to give you an idea of what kind of spawns. Of course, lots of things can be level 2 treasures, some better than others. We do have a native scout guarded by a polar bear here. We do have 20% hero HP guarded by 2 polar bears. Down here we have a settler guarded by 6 wool or coyotes. Here a nearly mature wolf pup. Here 95 wood, and you can get like 80 food with the same guardians. You can get like 100 food or 150 food guarded by 2 guardians. All of these can be those kind of treasures. That's what we're looking at here. There are no level 3 treasures on this map, which are, those massive ones that are super hard to get, guarded by absolutely tons of riflemen and whatever else. So, civilization's choice also matters on this map because of the treasures. Civilizations that have strong heroes, like all of the war chief civs, and, some of the civilizations that get extra scouts are important on a map like this. You've got to think about your civilization in a tournament that you're going to be playing here. And also there are sheep. Civilizations with extra scouts are going to find these. Sheep are important. And I like the fact that they only spawn 1 sheep per pocket, where traditionally it's always been 2 animals per section. And, I like per pocket, I should say. This is nicer because it eliminates that irritation factor where you find an animal and you're like, oh, there's a second one there, I better go back for it. And then you wait here for like a couple moments and then it converts. You're like, oh, finally, it takes like a couple seconds. This kind of gets rid of that and also makes it more balanced, I would argue. It makes the sheep less of a factor, getting as many sheep. If you're, you basically are restricted to playing civilizations that have to be good at finding sheep. Otherwise, but you're not here, because there's only 1 sheep per pocket, so there's just inherently less animals and all of that. It makes it, I suppose, more balanced. Like, if you do find lots of sheep pockets, since you're only getting 1 per patch, you're also going to get less sheep overall, which is more balanced as well, I suppose. So there is that. The final thing to discuss is these trading posts, but before we do so, I'm going to show you the other spawn of Saguenay, or I should say Hudson Bay rather. Garja, going the extra mile. Can I get this right first time? It looks promising. Yes! Gets the snow version. Nice. I love it. I love the fact Garja, added a snowy version that Saguenay just doesn't have. Some variety there, keeps it fresh. And even when, look at this, he's putting caribou rather than elk, and he's putting musk ox rather than moose for the winter. Getting his migration patterns a bit more accurate with regards to the weather is pretty cool. And these all have the same amount of food in, so balancing-wise. And we even get to see the other trading route. Here it is. It's completely random for both spawn. Like, the frost spawn doesn't necessarily come with this spawn, as we know. This is completely random for both the winter and summer version, and so it doesn't, so there is that. Now, trading sites. I did briefly allude to the Cree, the 5 CDB, but the other unit they get is Cree Trackers. Let's take a look at those. Not quite sure why it only has 283 hit points, but it does. The point is here, though, it has a lot of hit points. At 300, right? It's a lot of HP. Basically, it has more HP and less ranged attack. So that inherently makes it worse. It's not as good as a regular skirmisher. It has, very similar stats to what a skirmisher would have. That ×2 damage multiplier versus heavy infantry, ×2 versus ranged cavalry, and sort of negative, does less damage to cavalry that have a hand attack. So it's basically a skirmisher style unit armed with a bow. And that's what it is. But it's, as I said, inherently worse. Because it's usually, skirmishers you keep at the back of your army, and they shoot, you run away a bit, you shoot, they're usually kiting with these, not taking damage, and skirmishers, if they are going to take damage, are usually protected by a bunch of pikemen or dragoons that are going to force down the cavalry really quickly if they come anywhere near them. You don't need a lot of HP on a skirmisher, and the fact that it has less attack, therefore, is just, it's not going to be as good at killing things. So this is just inherently worse. And also it costs a lot. That's a problem all native units share. They just cost too much wood, and of course wood is the slowest gathering resource in AoE 3, and it's also the most expensive to upgrade. So, the fact that this is just a problem with, I suppose, the game, the fact that no one ever sees these. But I still, Kree's still definitely going to see play because of the CDB that they can get. But let's take a look at their, of course, upgrades here. We do have Kree Tanning, 100 food, 100 coin. You get 5% cavalry hit points and infantry. Fairly expensive for what it does. You're not definitely going to be rushing to the TP and be building it for 200 wood and then getting this upgrade, because it's just not worth it. But later on in the game, definitely nothing to smear at. 5% is reasonable for actually what is later on in the game quite a reasonable, quite cheap. So there is that. Everything matters in those big fights. And next we have increased Kree tracker build limit for this cost here. Now, unlikely to ever see play simply because you're not going to train Cree trackers. Short and simple, nothing else to say about that. Now, Cree textile craftsmanship, their last upgrade. I say last, there is these other two, but these are, sort of the standard warrior societies and champions that you always get with every native trading post that upgrades their, the relevant units by 25 and 40% depending what age you're in. So the last unique upgrade is textile craftsmanship, reduces the wood cost of buildings by 25% for the cost shown. Same with Cree tanning, it's just, too expensive. It's not going to pay back as quickly as it needs to in that early portion of the game. You're not going to be spending 200 wood on a TP and then paying this just for cheaper buildings. It'll take far too long to pay off. But perhaps worse than Cree tanning because, by the time it is worth getting, you've probably built all your infrastructure and yeah, you're not going to need to reduce the cost, but still, in a very long game, potentially going to see play. So there is that. Now, this brings us onto the Huron, which I think is very, very fun indeed. Huron manlets. I love the uniqueness of this unit. Look, 250 hit points and 40% range resist with a ranged attack. About the same as a musketeer, nothing to sneer at that, 25 range damage, but definitely is not musketeer-esque at all. It's very tanky, resists lots of range, especially range damage because of the range resist there. And the only thing I can really think it's similar to, a lot of units, that's clearly, Highlanders, clearly musketeer, Jaegers, clearly skirmisher, and like the Cree track, it was, basically a skirmisher. This I cannot think what it would be other than a grenadier, but grenadier still a bit, quite different, but yes, those are the stats. Nothing to smear at, but still sneer at, but you're unlikely to be training. It costs a bit too much wood, but definitely worth remembering it's good because let's take a look at the Huron here. We do indeed have a very interesting upgrade. Huron Trade Dominance sends one manlet for every 2 minutes of the game, which has passed up to 30 minutes. Can't see it being, basically at the 30-minute mark, I see this being viable. Imagine if the game goes on that long. And then, that'd be so cool for this massive upgrade. You get you get 15 manlets. For that cost, that's not bad. It can sway the course of a battle, and I'm super excited to see that. Maybe even players are fighting over he's got one player's got his one, and then he's aware that his opponent probably wants to get his one at around the 30-minute mark. The fighting suddenly shifts to controlling the Huron settlements. I don't know. If you ask me, that's a pretty cool dynamic that especially both trading sites on this map are going to see play. I'd love to see maps generally more encourage Cree settlements. Perhaps, I don't know, Garja could make a map where you start with maybe it's got no actual trading sites on it in terms of a route, but indeed, you start with a trading route traveler, and you're in, because that way you're definitely going to be building a settlement. I think that could be a really cool element to a map. But that does conclude Hudson Bay. Of course, lots more maps to come in the other videos. Go and watch them. Maps that we have not seen, but definitely want to cover all of the maps in the map pool. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Interjection. Do leave a like if you enjoyed the video. I do appreciate that, and I will see you all again next time.